شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك.
Allah states in His book, and mention, meaning, O Muhammad, when we designated for Abraham the site of the house, saying, do not associate anything with me, and purify my house for those who perform tawaf, and those who stand in prayer, and those who bow and prostrate, and proclaim to the people the Hajj, meaning pilgrimage. They will come to you on foot and on every lean camel. They will come from every distant pass. Mecca is the sacred land where the ancient house of Allah exists, and to which the Muslims' hearts from all the corners of the globe are attached. It is to this sacred mosque wherein all hearts and all bodies face in humility, praying to Allah 5 times a day. Since it was established by the Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, in response to the command of his Lord, Muslims have been coming from all the corners of the globe to it in order to perform the rites of Hajj and circumambulate the Kaaba. Allah, the Almighty, says, indeed, the first house of worship established for mankind was that at Mecca, blessed and a guidance for the worlds. In it are clear signs, such as the standing place of Abraham, and whoever enters it shall be safe. And due to Allah from the people is a pilgrimage to the house, for whoever is able to find thereto a way. But whoever disbelieves, then indeed Allah is free from need of the worlds. When Allah decreed for the Son of Islam to rise, He sent the seal of His prophets, Muhammad, peace be upon him, with the true religion to make it dominant over all other religions. He also sent His messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to point out to mankind how astray and ignorant they were. The Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have stated, Islam has been built on 5 pillars, testifying that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah, and Muhammad is His messenger, establishing prayer, giving zakat, fasting during the month of Ramadan, and performing Hajj to the sacred mosque of Allah for him who has the capability and means to perform it. So Hajj is one of the pillars of Islam. If one has the physical and financial ability to perform Hajj, his Islam will not be complete until he performs it. Hajj is the 5th pillar of Islam. It is obligatory upon every adult, sane, and free Muslim who is healthy and financially able to perform Hajj at least once during his lifetime. Every year, millions of pilgrims perform Hajj and Umrah. Out of the realization of the government, of the custodian of the 2 holy mosques, of the importance of this great rite, and the necessity of offering the best service to the pilgrims who come to perform it, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia dedicates all its financial and human resources for the service of Allah's guests, meaning the pilgrims. Doing so, the Saudi authorities seek to ensure the tranquility and peace of the pilgrims since their arrival to the sacred territories until their departure to their homelands. Hajj is during well-known months, so whoever has made Hajj obligatory upon himself, therein by entering the state of Ihram, no sexual relations, and no disobedience, and no disputing during Hajj. And whatever you do, Allah knows it. And take provisions, but indeed, the best provision is fear of Allah. And fear me, O you of understanding. There are 3 types of Hajj. Each type has its own way and obligations that are essential for the validity of Hajj. The types of Hajj are al-ifrad, meaning performing Hajj alone in its due time; al-qiran, meaning combining Hajj and Umrah with one state of ihram during the months of Hajj; and at-tamattu', meaning performing Umrah during the months of Hajj, then ending the state of ihram and staying until the time of Hajj to perform it. The best of those types for the one who has not brought hadi, meaning sacrificial animals, with him is tamattu', which the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, recommended to his companions. Tamattu' is to perform Umrah during the months of Hajj. Then the muhrim ends the state of ihram after making tawaf, sa'i, and having one's hair cut. On the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah, a pilgrim starts the rites of Hajj from the site in which he stays. After that, he must offer hadi. In case he is not able to offer hadi, he should fast 3 days during Hajj and 7 days when he comes back to his homeland. Qiran is to intend to perform both Hajj and Umrah consecutively and in the same season. A pilgrim declares his intention saying, O Allah, here are Umrah and Hajj. When he enters Mecca, he has to make the arrival tawaf. After that, he makes sa'i for both Hajj and Umrah. He must stay in the state of ihram on the 8th day. He is to embark on performing the remaining rites of Hajj and Umrah, but he does not have to make sa'i, because the first one he made upon his arrival is sufficient. Then he is to offer hadi, but if he does not have the ability to do so, he has to fast 3 days during Hajj and 7 days when he gets back to his home. Ifrad is to intend to make Hajj only. Upon entering Mecca, he must make tawaf and sa'i and remain in the state of ihram until completing the remainder of its rites. He does not have to offer hadi because he does not combine between Hajj and Umrah. The first rite of Hajj is ihram, that refers to one's entering the state of ritual sanctification for Hajj, thus declaring that he begins one's Hajj. Before reaching Mecca, the pilgrim must assume ihram at one of the 5 sites stated and determined by the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, for all pilgrims coming from all the corners of the earth to the sacred mosque. Below are these 5 sites. 1. Dhul Hulayfa. This is a place where Medina residents, or those traveling through Medina to Mecca, must enter ihram at. It is called in the present time Abyar Ali. 2. Al-Juhfa. This is the place where residents of the Levant, meaning the Syria-Palestine region, Egypt, and North Africa, enter ihram at. Pilgrims from such places assume ihram at Rabigh these days. 3. Qarn al-Manazil. This is a site for residents of Najd to enter ihram at. This site is called now as Sayl al-Kabir. 4. Yalamlam. This is a place where residents of Yemen enter ihram at. Pilgrims from such places will assume ihram at As-Sa'adiyya. And finally, number 5, Dhatu Irq. This is the place where residents of Iraq, or present-day Iraq, enter ihram at. People of Mecca will assume ihram from this site when intending to perform Hajj only, and from at-Tan'im, or whatever place outside the precincts of the sacred mosque when intending to perform Umrah, meaning the lesser Hajj. Similarly, the people of Jeddah are to assume ihram from Jeddah. Whoever passes through any of these sites while intending to perform Hajj or Umrah is to assume ihram. Whoever passes by these sites without entering the state of ihram is to return and assume ihram from any of them. Otherwise, he is to slaughter a goat as a sacrificial animal in Mecca and distribute its meat between the poor therein. Muslim brothers, when you come to the site of ihram by car or the like, you should perform ritual bathing and wear perfume if available. Then, the male pilgrim should wear the clothes of ihram, meaning 2 white and clean pieces of clothes that are not sewn, one to be wrapped around the lower part of the body and another to be worn over the shoulders. As for the woman, she is to be dressed in the same way as she is legally required to appear in while not performing Hajj when she is outside her home or in the presence of men. Afterwards, the pilgrim declares his or her intention to enter the state of ihram to begin the rites of Hajj, saying, "O Allah, here is Umrah for your sake." It does not matter if the pilgrim wears the clothes of ihram in his house, then begins to pronounce talbiyah until the car, ship, or aircraft passes parallel to the site where he is to assume ihram. It is permissible for men, but not women, to raise their voices while saying talbiyah. Once you enter the state of ihram for Umrah or Hajj or both, then you have actually set out on a journey during which you are prohibited to commit some specific acts. 1. The muhrim is prohibited to remove the least part of his hair or nails by any means. If some hair or nail of the muhrim happens to be removed accidentally, then he or she is forgiven. 2. It is prohibited for the muhrim to have perfume on his body or clothes. 3. It is prohibited for the muhrim to involve himself in hunting. 4. It is prohibited for the muhrim to remove the least part of wild plants in the holy lands. 5. The muhrim is not permitted to take the lost and found object, but to make a public announcement of it. 6. It is prohibited for the muhrim to make a marriage proposal or contract. 7. The muhrim is prohibited to have sexual intercourse with his wife or even to behave lustfully to her. 8. The woman in the state of ihram is prohibited to wear gloves or to have a veil and the like over her face unless she is in the presence of men who are legally permitted to marry her. 9. The man in the state of ihram is prohibited to cover his head with a part of his ihram clothes or whatever objects that are to touch the head when worn. However, he is permitted to seek shelter under an umbrella or inside a car. 10. The man is prohibited to wear any part of sewn clothes on his body while in the state of ihram. As such, he is not permitted to wear turbans, a pair of trousers, hoods, and the like. He also is prohibited to wear socks or stitched footwear like shoes. However, he is permitted to wear a pair of trousers when lacking a loincloth and stitched footwear when lacking unstitched ones like slippers. Thus, the male muhrim is permitted to wear unstitched footwear, glasses, rings, belts, and hearing aids. There is no special prayer to be performed for entering the state of ihram as thought by many people. The muhrim is still required, of course, to adhere to the obligatory acts of worship, he or she must also avoid committing sins, including disputes, offensive speech, fighting, and so on. You have already reached Mecca. The following is the program you should follow. 1. It is desirable for the muhrim to perform ritual bathing upon reaching Mecca. He enters the sacred mosque and says, I seek refuge in Allah the Supreme, His honor and eternal glory, and His everlasting authority from stoned, the rejected shaitan. O Allah, open the doors of your mercy for me. 2. The muhrim is recommended then to make his way toward the Kaaba to begin tawaf, meaning circumambulating around it. Ittiba' during this tawaf is an act of sunnah, which means the muhrim's fixing the center of the upper piece of his ihram clothes under his right armpit, and while putting its two ends over the left shoulder so that his right shoulder will be uncovered. Making tawaf, the muhrim will circle around the Kaaba 7 times, beginning from the black stone. The muhrim should proceed to the black stone and kiss it if it is available, and provided he will not hurt others. In case there is a crowd around the black stone, it is sufficient for the muhrim to point at it, saying, Allahu Akbar, meaning Allah is the greatest. The muhrim is encouraged during tawaf to make dhikr and free supplications to Allah and recite the Quran without raising his voice, lest he may disturb others making tawaf with him. 3. Upon reaching or coming parallel to the Yemeni corner, the muhrim should touch it if it is available. It is prohibited to kiss the Yemeni corner or wipe oneself on it. If it is unavailable to touch the Yemeni corner, then what the muhrim should do is to continue making his tawaf without pointing at it or saying takbir, meaning saying Allahu Akbar. It is an act of sunnah for the muhrim to say when coming between the Yemeni corner and the black stone, Our Lord, give us in this world that which is good, and in the hereafter that which is good, and protect us from the punishment of the fire. 4. During the first 3 rounds of tawaf, it is an act of sunnah for the person making it to walk with a hurried pace, taking short steps. This manner of walk is termed as ramal, and applied only to the arrival tawaf, which is made once the muhrim reaches Mecca. Many muhrims make the mistake when making tawaf. Below are these mistakes. 1. The muhrim may enter Hijr of Ismail during tawaf, thinking that tawaf is to be made from inside this area. However, such a manner renders tawaf as incomplete and thus invalid. 2. The one making tawaf may touch and wipe himself on all the corners of the Kaaba and the station of Abraham. All such manners are innovative matters in religion and have not been done by the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. 3. It is not permissible for the one making tawaf to offer his ritual recitation with a loud voice. 4. The women and men sometimes crowd together, especially at the black stone and the station of Abraham. This is a legally impermissible act and is to be avoided. You have just finished tawaf, so hasten to cover your right shoulder. As an act of sunnah, it is recommended to perform a 2 rak'ah prayer after finishing tawaf behind the station of Abraham, if it is available. Otherwise, you may perform it wherever you can in the sacred mosque. In the first rak'ah, you should recite after Surah Al-Fatiha the surah beginning with, Say, O you disbelievers, while in the second one, it is recommended to recite the surah beginning with, say, He is Allah, who is one. It does not matter if you recite other surahs other than what is mentioned. Afterwards, the muhrim is to proceed to the Safa hill to begin another rite called sa'i, which means going back and forth 7 times between the 2 hills, Safa and Marwa. When you come to the Safa hill, you should recite before climbing it, "Indeed, as-Safa and al-Marwa are among the symbols of Allah. So whoever makes Hajj to the house or performs Umrah, there is no blame upon him for walking between them. And whoever volunteers good, then indeed Allah is appreciative and knowing." Then climb Safa. On Safa, you face the direction of the Kaaba and say 3 times, "Alhamdulillah," meaning praise be to Allah, and "Allahu Akbar," meaning Allah is the greatest. Supplicate to Allah repeatedly and say, "There is no God but Allah alone, with no partner. Dominion is His, and praise is to Him. He gives life and causes death. All good is in His hand, and He has power over everything. There is no God but Allah alone, with no partner. He kept His promise, gave His slave the victory, and routed the Confederates alone." The muhrim says this ritual 3 times. He may supplicate for whatever he wishes. There is no problem if one does not adhere to such invocations or makes short ones. Then the muhrim, male, not the female, descends from Safa and walks towards Marwa at normal paces, supplicating to Allah as much as he can. When he reaches the first green marker pulled down at the wall, he runs up until he reaches the second green marker, where he resumes his usual pace until reaching Marwa. My Muslim brother, when you come to Marwa, climb it, then face the direction of the Kaaba and say what you have said before upon Safa, supplicating for whatever you wish. Afterwards, descend and walk until you reach the first green marker, which was the second when descending from Safa. You run up from this green marker until you reach the other one. Now, resume your usual pace until you reach Safa. This way, you have made sa'i twice, and you need now to complete your sa'i up to 7 times with the same manner. For more clarification, going forth from Safa is a time, and going back from Marwa is another one. In case you feel tired or sick during sa'i, may Allah protect you, you may complete it on a wheelchair. 5. The woman in a state of menstruation or postnatal bleeding is permitted to make sa'i, but not tawaf, as the place of sa'i is not a part of the sacred mosque. 6. The woman is not permitted also to run up between the 2 green markers during sa'i. Finishing sa'i, the male muhrim, if he is mutamattu', meaning performing tamattu' hajj, is to have his hair equally cut. As far as the woman is concerned, she should take from her hair an amount equal to a fingertip. This way, the mutamattu' will have completed his umrah. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, may Allah have mercy on him, says, the person performing hajj or umrah should say the talbiyah repeatedly. In umrah, the time of the talbiyah begins when the muhrim enters the state of ihram until he begins tawaf. In hajj, the talbiyah begins from the time of entering the state of ihram until the time of throwing pebbles at Jamratul Aqaba in the morning of the feast day. The formula of talbiyah goes as follows: Labayk Allahumma labayk, labayk la sharika laka labayk, innal hamda wan ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. This means, here I am at your service, O Allah, I am at your service. You have no partner. I am at your service. Praise and blessing belong to you, as well as the dominion. You have no partner. The 8th of Dhul Hijjah. On the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah, the pilgrims proceed to Mina while they are in the state of Ihram, whether they are performing Ifrad, Qiran, or Tamattu'. This is in conformity with the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is recommendable to proceed to Mina before the noon prayer, and there the pilgrims are to pray Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and Fajr, while shortening the 4 rak'ah prayers, but without combining each 2 prayers. It is also an act of the Sunnah that the pilgrim spends the night at Mina during the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah. The day of Arafah. On the day of Arafah, the pilgrims proceed in multitudes to Arafah Mount on that memorable day which Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings upon him, described as the best of all days. The pilgrims are to stand on Mount Arafah from sunrise until sunset on that great day. It is an act of the Sunnah that the pilgrim go to Namira, if it is available for him to do that. On that great day, adhere, O you dear pilgrim, to the Talbiyah, remembrance of Allah, asking him for forgiveness, and saying Takbir and Tahleel. You should also turn to Allah in submission and humility. Then, when the noontime comes, the Imam is to give a sermon in which he is to remind the people of their Lord and their duties towards him. Then the Imam is to lead the pilgrims in the Dhuhr and Asr prayers, combining both prayers and performing them in the shortening form, as the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, did. He is not to perform any other prayer before them, between them, or after them. Avoid, O you dear pilgrims, falling into any mistakes that cause you to miss any of your reward during that great day and the memorable standing on Arafah. One of the mistakes committed by some pilgrims is descending outside the precincts of Arafah and staying in their positions outside until sunset. The pilgrim should not have sexual relations with his wife, nor commit sin, nor dispute unjustly. Allah the Almighty says in the Quran, "There is no sin on you if you seek the bounty of your Lord. Then when you leave Arafah, remember Allah at Al-Mash'ar al-Haram, and remember Him as He has guided you. And verily, you were before of those who were astray. Then depart from the place whence all the people depart, and ask Allah for His forgiveness. Truly, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful." At the time of sunset, during the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah, the pilgrims are to move to Al-Mash'ar al-Haram at Muzdalifah, and as soon as they reach there, they are to pray the Maghrib and Isha prayers in combination and in the shortened form. They are to spend the night there, making talbiyah, dhikr, and rendering thanks to Allah for His bounties and benevolence, as He decreed for them to stand on Arafah Mount. When the pilgrims reach Al-Muzdalifah, some of them commit some mistakes that should be demonstrated. They are as follows. 1. Some pilgrims pick the pebbles before performing the prayers of Maghrib and Isha combined and shortened. Performing prayer should take priority. 2. Some pilgrims think that the pebbles should be picked from Al-Muzdalifah, which is a common mistake that should be avoided. It is permissible for women, the weak, and the children to leave for Mina at the end of the night. After the pilgrim performs the Fajr prayer, it is recommended for him to stand at Al-Mash'ar al-Haram, or he can stand anywhere at Muzdalifah. It is recommendable for the pilgrim to face the Qibla and continue remembering Allah, making takbir and supplicating to Allah with whatever invocations and supplications that come to his mind. Then the pilgrim is to pick the pebbles for stoning the jamras, meaning the stoning sites. There are 7 pebbles that are bigger in size than chickpeas in order to throw pebbles at the first stoning site of Jamratul Aqaba. The remaining pebbles for other jamras are to be picked from Mina. When the pilgrim reaches Mina, he is to head for Jamratul Aqaba, which is the closest stoning site to Mecca. When he reaches Jamratul Aqaba, he is to stop saying Talbiyah, then stone Jamratul Aqaba with 7 pebbles consecutively, saying Takbir while throwing each pebble. Then, the pilgrim is to slaughter the hadi, meaning the sacrificial animal, eat from it, and feed the poor. Then he is to either have his hair shaved or cut, and shaving is better. And the woman is to cut an amount equal to the size of a thumbprint of her hair. Performing the rituals of Hajj according to this order is better for the pilgrim. However, if he does some rituals before others, there is no blame on him in doing that. The days of At-Tashriq, Tawaf al-Ifada, and Tawaf al-Wada'. Muslims all over the world, as well as the pilgrims at Mina, receive Al-Adha feast with joy and cheerfulness with what Allah has conferred on them of His favors, and they are to slaughter their sacrificial animals to draw nearer to Allah. It is noteworthy in this context that the pilgrim will find helpful the project established by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for making use of the meats of the sacrificed animals slaughtered as hadi or udhiyah. It is noticeable that when the pilgrims throw the pebbles, some of them fall in mistakes. One of the mistakes is that some pilgrims think they stone devils, so they become enraged and start insulting those devils while throwing the pebbles at the stoning sites. It is well known that stoning has been only ordained for stating the remembrance of Allah. Another mistake is stoning the sites with the big pebbles or pieces of wood, for this is an exaggeration in religion forbidden by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Among the mistakes committed by some pilgrims is crowding together and vying with one another at the places of the stoning sites so as to throw pebbles at them. And this is of course a big mistake. It is obligatory for the pilgrim to be gentle to his fellow Muslims, and he should be eager to throw his pebbles inside the circle surrounding the post without regard as to whether it hits the post or not. A common mistake is throwing all the pebbles at once. What is permissible in this regard is throwing them one after another and saying takbir while throwing each pebble. After the pilgrim stones the first post of Al-Aqaba and has his hair shaved or cut, then he has reached the first tahallul, meaning the first release, and then he is permitted to wear his clothes, and all the lawful matters prohibited for him because of ihram are permitted except for intimate relations with his wife. Then the pilgrim is to go to Mecca to perform Tawaf al-Ifada, the going forth circumambulation, which is one of the pillars of Hajj, without which the Hajj is void. Then the pilgrim is to perform sa'i, and if he is performing tamattu', or if he has not performed it together with Tawaf al-Qudum, meaning arrival circumambulation, in case he is performing ifrad or qiran. It is worth mentioning in this regard that the pilgrim is permitted to postpone Tawaf al-Ifada until after completing the days of Mina and returning to Mecca after finishing the stoning of Jamras. after the pilgrim finishes Tawaf al-Ifadah on the day of Nahr, meaning the day of slaughtering, or the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, then the pilgrim performs Tawaf al-Ifadah on the day of Nahr. All the prohibited matters because of Ihram are now permissible for him, including intimate relations. Pilgrim is to return to Mina to spend the night there during the days of Tashriq. The days of Tashriq are the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th days of Dhul Hijjah. Or he can only spend 2 nights if he has intended to hasten to leave in compliance with Allah's statement, and remember Allah during the appointed days. But whosoever hastens to leave in 2 days, there is no sin on him, and whosoever stays on, there is no sin on him. And if his aim is to do good and obey Allah, and know that you will surely be gathered unto him. It is obligatory for the pilgrim to stone the 3 jamras in the afternoon during the days he spends at Mina, and he is to say takbir while throwing each pebble. It is an act of the sunnah to stand after stoning the smallest and medium jamras, meaning the stoning sites, facing the Qibla and spreading out his hands. Then he is to supplicate Allah, asking him for whatever he wants. However, while stoning Jamratul Aqaba, the pilgrim should not stand to supplicate Allah after it. Whoever wants to hasten to leave in 2 days, he should stone the 3 jamras on the 12th day at the afternoon. Then the pilgrim is to leave Mina before the sunset. But if he remains at Mina after the sun sets, he should spend the night on the 13th day of Dhul Hijjah, unless he has intended to hasten. For in this case, he can leave and is not obligated to stay at Mina. Then the journey of Hajj proceeds to Mecca once again, so as to practice the farewell circumambulation around the sacred house, meaning Tawaful Wada'. And by doing that, the journey of Hajj is about to come to an end. After the multitudes of pilgrims finish the performance of the rituals of Hajj, the pillars, the obligations, and the recommendable actions, they consummate their rituals with the farewell circumambulation in compliance with the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ states, "None of you should leave the sacred territories until he visits the house as his last action." Tawaful Wada' is the last of the obligations that the pilgrim should do directly before traveling back to his homeland. None is to be exonerated from the Tawaful Wada' except for the woman in a state of menstruation or postnatal bleeding. Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, may Allah have mercy on him, said, when the pilgrim who has finished performing Hajj or Umrah returns to his country, he should recall the rituals of Hajj that he has practiced every time his soul calls him to commit an act of disobedience. He should recall his standing at Arafah Mount, his circumambulation around the house, and the statements of dhikr that he made in the different places of Hajj, for that helps him avoid committing sins. I supplicate to Allah for all pilgrims to have their Hajj accepted by Allah, their sins forgiven by Him, and to have their endeavor blessed by Him. He has power over all things. O Allah, confer your peace and blessings upon our leader, the Prophet Muhammad, his household and companions. The way of visiting the prophetic mosque. It is recommendable for the pilgrim to visit Medina, the city to which the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, migrated, and to pay a visit to the prophetic mosque, which is one of the mosques that one is permitted to set out for a journey to visit. The Prophet ﷺ stated, "It is not permitted to set out on a journey to visit any mosque except for 3 mosques: the Holy Masjid, meaning the Kaaba, my Masjid, and Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa." in spite of the fact that visiting the prophetic mosque is not a condition or an obligatory act for performing Hajj, nor does it have any relation or connection with Hajj, nor does it require entering into a state of ihram, it is recommendable to pay a visit to it at any time throughout the year. Besides, so long as Allah has made it easy for the pilgrims to reach the territories of the two holy shrines, it is recommendable for them to visit Medina in order to pray in the prophetic mosque, where a single prayer performed at it is equal to 1,000 prayers at any other mosque other than the holy mosque. Performing one prayer at the holy mosque equals 100,000 prayers. Then the pilgrim is to say, Assalamu alaikum, to Allah's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. So when you reach, O you dear pilgrim, the prophetic mosque, enter it with your right foot. Mention the name of Allah. Invoke his peace and blessings upon the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then ask Almighty Allah to open for you the gates of his mercy. After entering the prophetic mosque, you are to perform 2 rak'ah, preferably in the dignified rawdah. Otherwise, he can offer them anywhere in the prophetic mosque. Then you, dear pilgrim, are to go to the grave of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Stand before it and say, Assalamu alaikum. To him, in complete politeness and with a low voice, you are to say, Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Meaning, may peace, mercy of Allah, and his blessings be upon you, O Prophet. O Allah, grant him al-wasila, meaning the greatest rank in paradise, and al-maqam al-mahmud, the praiseworthy stature that you have promised him. O Allah, give him the best reward for delivering the message to this ummah. Then you should step a little to the right side to stand before the grave of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, radiyallahu anhu. May Allah be pleased with him. Say, Assalamu alaikum to him, and ask Allah's mercy, forgiveness, and pleasure for him. Then step, O you dear pilgrim, a little to the right, and stand before the grave of Umar, radiyallahu anhu, and say, Assalamu alaikum to him, and ask Allah's mercy, forgiveness, and pleasure for him. It is recommendable for you, dear pilgrim, after that, to visit Al-Baqiyah. Al-Baqiyah is the cemetery in which there are the graves of many companions, including that of the 3rd Caliph of Islam, Uthman ibn Affan, radiyallahu anhu. May Allah be pleased with him. It is also recommendable for you, dear pilgrim, to visit the mosque of Quba in a state of purity, as it is the first mosque built in Islam, and there it is recommendable for you to pray there, as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did that and exhorted the Muslims to do. There are no other mosques or places in Medina that are recommended to be visited after that. So one should not burden himself by visiting any other place for which there is no reward stated. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, may Allah have mercy upon him, said, when the pilgrim who has performed Hajj or Umrah returns to his country, he should recall the rituals of Hajj that he has practiced every time his soul calls him to commit an act of disobedience. He should recall his standing at Arafah Mount, his circumambulation around the house, and the statements of dhikr that he made in the different places of Hajj, for that helps him avoid committing sins. I supplicate to Allah for all pilgrims to have their Hajj accepted by Allah, their sins forgiven by him, and to have their endeavor blessed by him. He has power over all things. O Allah, confer your peace and blessings upon our leader, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his household and companions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.